Bobby, is that the problem, that they're no longer places of learning? They're actually businesses, effectively, many of them.
Of course, again, as a teacher, in fact, next week we see our students again back from year 7. I always think with my students, when they first join secondary school, I always want everyone to have the aspiration of going to university because, again, I've been to university. I know it's a place where I develop myself, not just academically, intellectually, but socially as well. But the reality is universities do have a cost. They've been charging £9,000 for the last 10 years. So they've frozen those fees. So they're obviously thinking, we need to make sure that the fees that we charge reflect the actual cost of delivering an education to young people. But at some stage, there comes a point where a young person thinks, actually, sir, I'm put off going to universities. I think it's too expensive. And that's where we have to be really careful, because if university puts off people from disadvantaged backgrounds who've got the capability of going to university, then I think there's something seriously going wrong.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are talking about the aspect of getting industry to pay for taking you through your courses. And of course, that happens with a lot of people who go into apprenticeships and so on. I mean, could we actually move that structure into universities away from the workplace?
I think absolutely. In fact, on Saturday, I was on Alistair Stewart's show with a wonderful young business person called Sian, and she had actually done something called a degree apprenticeship. And obviously, most people, when they think of university, think of the traditional A-levels, go straight to an undergraduate academic degree, whereas her degree was actually one where she was working and learning at the same time. But again, with the issue with this was, with UCAS, when you apply as a normal student, you apply and you send it off to 4 or 5 universities. Whereas with her, she had to apply to each specific business separately for this degree apprenticeship. So the reality is, our ministers, our government, are not treating these other routes into education with the same respect that they do for normal undergraduate degrees.
Right, OK. Well, so much for a knowledge-based economy. Well, Joseph, the other issue is, of course, I think £24,000, as we said, that they can charge for international students. Has that skewed the whole sort of issue, in that the universities argue they've got to be able now to compete on an international level?
Well, I think the issue really is that we are devaluing the word degree. What my colleague has just described there really in the olden days used to be called apprenticeships. And I think we should be seeing a return to a division between what are actually labour skills and what are intellectual and academic skills. If we're going to hand out degrees like candy, what's the point of differentiating between the academia and the workplace? I think some people, myself included, found great value in actually going and working straight after school before going back to do a degree. And you get the best of both worlds. You actually find that you have the applicative ability when you go back to university in terms of discipline, and you discover a passion for academia at the same time. I don't think we should be conflating the two. Yeah,
that's an interesting point. What does it make a sort of gap year compulsory, in other words?
Absolutely. I think everyone should have at least a year of work after school, because then you get to see the real world. A lot of the problem with a lot of our politicians is that it's becoming professional class to go into politics, as opposed to actually having real world experience. I think the same thing is absolutely true in academia, where we're seeing professional academics who have never done a day's work in their life and have sort of drifted along from school to academia without ever really experiencing the real world. And that might be fine for some theoretical subjects, but not for the workplace.
Bobby, let's put that back to you. No experience of the real world.
To be honest, again, if you're an academic studying Jane Austen's literature or theoretical mathematics, I can assume, the pattern is GCSEs, A-levels, university, then maybe become an academic. And that is a path for some people. But the reality is, if as a country we are going to be financing education, subsidizing it, because the £9,000 a year currently, even £13,000 probably doesn't cover all the cost of a university, we need to make sure that universities provide benefit to society. We need academics, but we also need people at universities that go on to provide other economic value to society, be it as doctors, be it as engineers, be it as teachers. So universities really need to show that they can provide real economic benefit to society.